Live, you are live. And a very good afternoon to all of you across the world. A far cry this afternoon from our start on the sunrise safari. This morning when I heard the words 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1, as soon as Louise said you are live, it started pouring with rain. We frantically put the rain covers on, but not before both Dave and myself in the vehicle were absolutely drenched. We tried to go out a second time and got absolutely drenched, at which point we tried to do a rain segment on the hope that we could go out again, and we got absolutely drenched. So this morning, a very damp, there goes my fire grid Bernard moth that I really wanted to show you, but I was too busy talking about our rainy start. So welcome to our sunset safari. We are coming to you live from Djuma and Arathusa game reserves in the Sabi Sands, which is in the greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. My name is Jamie and I have VM on camera with me this afternoon, and we're starting off with one Dugger boy, as they are colloquially known in South Africa, a male buffalo, who's decided to take a visit to the spa. Now, don't forget that we're also interactive, so you can send through your questions on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can email through to question on WildEarthTV. And you will be enjoying the pleasure of VM and myself's company for probably somewhere in the region of about 3 hours this afternoon, depending, give or take. The reason behind that is that Wendy has been requisitioned to do some filming that needs to be done off air. And just to clarify, before there's any kind of panic, it is not in any way to film Karula and her cubs. It's just to do some general filming of the various animals around this area. That's, I think, how I would spend a hot afternoon. It's gone from rainy and chilly to 30 degrees centigrade, which equates to about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Rocky Knight was wondering if, in fact, I had dried up this afternoon. Yes, Rocky Knight, I did. It took a cup of tea, or two, maybe. Probably two would be a more honest answer. And some time spent wrapped in pajamas in bed, and I did actually finally manage to dry off and warm up. And now I'm actually rather hot. So it's that time of year that's just full of extremes across the board. Hot and cold and hot and cold. The mornings are chilly. It's still windy. It's still blowing. In theory, it is not meant to rain on this afternoon sunset safari. That, of course, is what we said this morning. As I was driving into work, I got 1 or 2 drops, and I said to everybody, do you think it's going to rain? And James said unequivocally, absolutely not, and the rest of us all said absolutely not. Well, apparently we shouldn't pursue, perhaps we should stick with our day job as guides and presenters and not pursue any kind of career as meteorologists. None of us seem to be able to correctly predict exactly what the weather is going to do. Of course, we need the rain, and it's lovely to see pans such as the one this buffalo boy is wallowing in. So nice and full. The dams are filling up. I know lots of you really wanting to get a view of Vuyatela Dam, so that's what we're going to go and do. We're going to make our way along here and have a look. So, Mr. Buffalo, I think we're going to leave you to your muddy, watery spa treatment. Enjoy. And we're going to go and see what else we can find. That, of course, is provided... Rusty will, there we go into reverse. Now, Lucy in Indiana. Lucy, I'm not even sure if you are watching this afternoon sunset safari. Lucy sent through an update last night, or early this morning, to say that she'd heard a leopard through the damn camera. Lucy, I did as well. Hello, boy. Nice and chilled. Let's just stop here for one moment, just because he's got a nice view of his face and his eyes. And those impressive set of horns. Lucy, I did hear the leopard calling. It sounded as though it was right underneath my window, so that's why we're here now. Interesting. Aaliyah must be, or maybe I'm mistaken. Aaliyah has quite a unique view of our buffalo bulls. She sees them as cute. It's interesting. Perhaps my perspective on their cuteness is slightly different, given the odd occasion I've been up a tree due to one. Slightly different perspective, but Aaliyah, I can see what you mean. When we look at them like this, they look like incredibly docile, very bovine-like, very cow-like, resting in the pan, just quietly ruminating, minding his own business. And of course, they're grumpy they're not grumpy or overly aggressive. It's just a matter of being alert to their presence, and it's very easy to bump into a buffalo bull like this, and that's probably why they've earned such a fearsome reputation in terms of danger to people on foot in the bush. Maybe just because very often in a summer like this, we've got a gentleman wallowing here. If he were to rest his head down, he'd be almost invisible if you were approaching from, say, that side of the pan. One of those reasons why it's nice to know or get to know an area slightly better on foot. But with those solid horn base, all bone, and exceptionally heavy, you know, we discussed that buffalo skull that is the leftovers from Brent's live kill a couple of months ago. I went and I put it on the front of the bonnet, and we chatted a little bit about that. Exceptionally heavy. It was all bone, solid bone, living bone, and with 900 kilograms behind that, can make for a very fearsome weapon. But I can see what you mean. When you watch them like this, there's something very peaceful about them. Hey, boy? I mean, he's half dozing, half ruminating, and looking very much comfortable in his swimming pool that he has all to himself. Yeah, boy, thank you for being so incredibly patient and being comfortable enough for us to watch you. Let's go and have a look at Voyatella Dam, and at the same time, let's have a look for that leopard that was calling outside our window last night. Not unfortunately, of course, we are very glad to have the rain, but what it does do is it gives us, generally washes away the tracks, leaves us with very solid ground. We're going to make tracking this leopard a bit more tricky. You know that Brent is out on tracking team. He's going to check around Buffelshoek Dam. I think the leopard was going in a different direction. I think he was coming towards this sort of southern Twin Dams area. I have absolutely no reason for thinking that, though. So we shall see if either of us is proved correct. Some buffalo thorn branches underneath us. Now, Jack was wondering about the Styx ladies, who apparently were wandering onto Djuma last night. I did get that update, Jack, and I would go looking for them, but oopsie, disappeared for a moment there. The weather, of course, played well with the odd signal difficulty. Jack, I would go look for those lionesses, but we've already heard that they are to the south of our boundary. That doesn't mean that they're going to stay there, though. So I think that will be my next call, will be to go and check what they decided to cross. On rainy mornings like this, the one we experienced this morning, we know that lions like to move about, go for a little bit of a walk. It's not too hot for them. We can be certain that now, wherever they may be, they will be lying up in shade somewhere. Lions are not like leopards. Leopards will move around at any time of the day, despite what every textbook might otherwise indicate. I've seen them walking around on 40-degree days. But lions are less inclined. They overheat far easier, and thus would prefer to find themselves a nice patch of shade once it warmed up. But Jack, I haven't discounted the possibility of the Styx lionesses. The Birmingham boys, just to finish up an update on the various lion movements of the area, the Birmingham boys apparently are, at least 4 of them, are on hook on a buffalo carcass along with the Nkuhuma pride. They have 2 buffalo carcasses. I'm not sure if they're in the same sighting or in a different one, but once the other vehicles start going out on their game drives, we should be able to get a clear update from them on that side. That one, the fact that there's a boy missing, and as our regular viewers know, a couple of years ago, we're going to explain on and off moment this afternoon. Please bear with us. We're working on these problems as quickly as possible. Sometimes with the rain and with the clouds, it does start to play havoc with our signal. Usually we know where the good signal areas are. We can stick to them. dams at this particular section, it should be fine. But I'll try and find areas where we can go without disrupting the picture every few seconds. We'll see if that helps in any way. And since we are specific to stitch, it doesn't matter too much. Brent's also going to help us out tremendously by being out on tracking team. Nice and slow through the puddles that have gathered since this morning's rain. Be careful, of course, to make sure that the terrapins have enough time and a gentle enough passage to surf away from us on their waves, or on the waves that the wheels make. So how's this for a question that we were given by our master during our 2 days of tracking learning? One of the questions he gave us, or tested us on, was a patch of mud similar to the one that we've just driven through, where red-chested, well, we think it was red-chested, all birds will do it, but where one of the swallow species had come to collect mud from the muddy edges around the pool. And it foxed everyone except me, but that was just pure luck. I just happened to guess upon the right thing. But that's the kind of thing that he teaches us. It's not just about the leopards and the lions. We know what those tracks look like, but the little things, the little objects of the area that are worth, and the little animals and the signs that they leave, so worth paying attention to. And his parting words of advice to us were something that I have been told before, but sometimes you just forget to go about doing. And that is that every time you see any animal, whether it's oxpeckers going down to drink, whether it's vultures going down to drink, whether it's birds of prey catching termites on the ground, or tortoises moving across the area, stop and have a look and see if you can notice the differences in the tracks that they leave, which is something very exciting. Now, I heard a report as well, while we make our way towards the dam, that the wonderful Stefan Winterboer happened to locate a Scops owl just outside final control. I'm hoping it's still going to be there. Once we've checked the dam, then I think we'll go and just double check in that direction. It also takes me to a closer, better signal area. Wonderful to see all of this water about. It is a pity that it's come as late as it has. It's right at the end of the growth season.
Are there any stations mobile?
Deborah, it's not your imagination at all. Deborah was wondering if it was her imagination or if the grass looked taller already. Let's just get to this nice open clearing, Deborah, and we can have a look and we can show you just how much has come through in the last week or so since the large rains. Sorry?
Not exactly the same spot, but similar area.
I'm just listening to an update on Tingana, sorry. They're having a conversation. I'll get that update from Brent in a second. But for Deborah, since we're here, let's stop and have a quick look at all of the grass that's growing. The rain that we had, as I said, has come at the end of the growth season. So there's not going to be a huge grass sprouting over the next few days. But it is definitely greener and definitely looking thicker. Enough to certainly not completely be rid of the drought, but certainly alleviate it, or maybe just put off the situation. That's stunning green in this afternoon light. And many of you watching the Djuma Dam camera, I know, have commented about how happy all of the birds sound at the fact that it has rained as much as it has. They definitely, as soon as the sun came out, were all making a terrible racket. I can hear Franklin calling off there. Let's go and investigate how much water has landed in WildEarthTV Dam. I'm not sure how much rain we had this morning. It felt like a huge amount, but maybe it felt like a huge amount because I was absolutely soaked to the bone. Yeah, Liam said it sounded like the floodgates opened. It felt, I can certainly, speaking from having experienced it very much firsthand, it certainly felt like the floodgates had opened. Luckily for me, since I don't live at the camp where the cars or the vehicles are based, fortunately for me, James was gallant enough to lend me a shirt and a jacket, just to sort of stave off the hypothermia that was starting to set in. Okay, so WildEarthTV Dam, looking, there's a woolly-necked stork. Where's he going to go? I think he's, I was hoping he was going to settle in that dead tree. Well done, Viam. Awesome. A woolly-necked stork. So for those of you starting off your bird lists or sort of in the intermediate stage, that might be a new one. And I always encourage new viewers to keep bird lists for themselves. See if you can beat our records. Watch you spotted, Viam. I'm just going to have a look at the dam. There we go. The dam looking distinctly fuller. I saw ripples and splashes, and I'm just wondering whether the catfish haven't come out. I think Brent had commented that he thought he saw them. Looking lovely and full. Could also be a hippo that's settled there, unless I'm absolutely mistaken. Let's go forward a bit and investigate. And since we're here, Michelle was wondering, she's seen an Egyptian goose sitting at the pan all day. The moment his spot has been usurped. There he is. I was going to say his spot's been usurped by the hardy-dar that's in front of us. And Michelle was wondering, I wonder where the Egyptian goose's friends and family are. And I'll get to him in a moment. Let's just, since we're here and we're looking at how full this pan is naturally, there's some foam nests on the branch up top there. You can see the white. Already the foam nest frogs, who have been in a large part responsible for the lovely calls that you've been hearing around the Djuma Dam. They're the ones that build those nests. So that's a combination of the male and females, reproductive fluids, whipping them together as the female lays her eggs and the males fertilize them. They whip the mixture together into a foamy, sticky combination that they situate on top of an area where they can then, once the tadpoles hatch, can drop into the water and develop there and go through their life cycles there. But for Michelle, there's two Egyptian two Egyptian geese is maybe the better way of phrasing that. You were wondering about his friends and family. Well, I hope you feel a bit more comforted in the fact that there are... No, man, I swear. Oh, there's the second one. Thought I was going crazy. There's the second one. There you go. Not a complete exception to see Egyptian geese on their own. Once they've fledged and left their parents, they have to go off in search of a mate. Most of our regular viewers know my theory about why hardy-dars screech like that when they fly. It's because they're frightened of heights. And those sensitive probing beaks digging into the soil to catch worms and insects. I feel as though I might have overdone the hardy-dars are afraid of heights jokes. Maybe it never gets old, but whenever they fly they go wah, 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 like they're terrified, like they're going to come tumbling out of the sky. Something I was told as a kid and has stuck with me ever since. Something that I appreciate. I think it's funny. It's hilarious. Let's go with that. Viam,
I like it too.
Viam likes it too. Viam appreciates it. Thank you, Viam. Thank you, Aldi. Now, those sensitive beaks with incredible nerve endings are capable of sniffing for and picking up any movement of worms or other underground arthropods. Oh, that reminds me, I completely forgot. Sorry, we're going to stop for a moment, just talk about this. As we raced back, I had to slam on the brakes this morning as I was coming into the DRC, and that was because there was a giant legless skink in the road, and it had us fooled for a while. I have to be honest. I thought it was a snake, and it's a little bit embarrassing now. In my defense, though, it was bucketing down in terms of rain, and it was very dark. Not completely my fault. So a legless skink is exactly what that suggests it is. It's a legless skink. Now, the one that we saw was a black glossy color, so it was a giant legless burrowing skink. Let me just see. I don't think there's a nice picture in this book of it. They come in lots of different color varieties. This was the one that we saw, but it was black in color. That funny shovel-nosed face. So strange looking, very weird. Now you can see why we might have been fooled into thinking it was a snake, although it's a little bit embarrassing. A nocturnal animal that comes out during the night, grabs mealworms and other insects, and is there then afterwards goes underground. So that's why we can't go and view it again this afternoon. But very easy to confuse with, for example, something like one of the blind snakes, which is a very similar look. Okay, that's not the most fantastic example, just imagine that, but black. But the face is not quite as pointed, and they don't get to be as large as those giant legless skinks do. It was a really interesting sighting though. Very, very relaxed snake. That being said, I wanted the guys who wanted to go and have a look to be exceptionally careful. And the reason behind that is that there is a snake known as a stiletto snake. And a stiletto snake is probably responsible for, I would say, couldn't give you an exact percentage, but it's certainly been known to inflict a large number of painful bites. And not only that, it is incredibly cytotoxic venom. The reason behind that is, first of all, it looks like a lot of the different harmless snakes. It can quite easily be mistaken by budding herpetologists as a mole snake or one of the harmless nocturnal snake species, but it is not. And not only that, it has, unlike any other, unlike any other snake species out here, it has sideways fangs. So whilst typical snake experts would handle a snake by grabbing it behind the head and catching it and immobilizing it in that way, with stiletto snakes, they can actually just swing their head ever so slightly, and the fangs are out of the side of their mouth and slightly curved. And therefore, the biggest warning in our snake book about them is that these snakes cannot be safely handled by hand, not even by those who are experts in handling and catching snakes. Now, I wonder if that Scops owl is still around, and if it is, then you might even get to see a little bit of a background or a behind-the-scenes view into the parking lot. Let's go and investigate, see if it's still there. So we're going to go in towards the parking lot, and yeah, it's wonderful news. Steph says it's still there. I'm sure we'll go right into the parking lot, and we'll get to see, not right into final control, but maybe, just maybe, we might even be able to coax the lovely ladies there to come out. Who knows? We'll see. Oh, spiderwebs in my face. Just as we leave that dam, I said that I saw some movement that I suspect might be the catfish coming out of their mud holes that they dig down when the dams dry up, and they form that mucousy layer around themselves. And Val was wondering, well, how long would the drought have to go on in order for the catfish to survive it in their underground burrows? And as far as I know, Val, they can survive up to about a year beneath in those muddy underground states of, I suppose you'd call it estivation in its own way. Ah, we have a traffic jam. I wonder if we're going to be able to get in to see this Scops owl. It is our wonderful tech genius, Eugene's Bucky. There we go. I can get around. No problem. No problem. Hello, Steph. It's okay, Eugene. We got it. Now, the reason I'm doing this, partly, is, apart from my lack of ability to get this vehicle into reverse at times, is because I've been trying to get a Scops owl on camera for ages. And I know the other presenters have managed it, but we haven't managed to yet, or I haven't managed to yet. So we're going to go and investigate. There's Steph there. doing the Steph look. Giving us a big wave. Where is he hiding, Steph?
Come right up to me. Let me show you where it is first. Hello everybody. This is going to be a bit of a mission to get done.
Okay.
Come a little bit more forward. Okay. You see this pale branch, this skinny one?
Yep.
He is exactly behind that pale branch. See where the sun is in that patch?
Yes.
I've
got him. There, I've got him. Oh my goodness.
You're going to have to go forward a little bit.
Yes, I'm going to have to go forward for VM. All right, VM, I'll watch my monitor closely and I'll guide you in. Well spotted, Steph. Okay. If we go straight into that sort of dark gap circle in the middle, let's see if that's about right. Where is he hiding? Let's try doing it the way that... Let's go down a little bit. You can hear Jerry chatting in the background, also helping us to find where the Scops owl is hiding. This might be trickier than I expected it to be. Wildy, let's try it this way.
I'm going to put my hand in.
Okay. Steph's going to go and guide us in. It'll be worth it. I promise you it'll be worth it.
You can move him next to us or
There we go.
Up that branch.
And into, there we go. Down a little bit. There we go. In there. There he goes. He moved. There he is. There he is. You can hear Jerry excitedly. She spotted it. Well done, Steph. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. How is that camouflage? How incredible is that? Can you see the little owl? Can you spot him? How awesome is that? He looks like a piece of bark. He really does. So one of our smallest little owl species, a Scops owl. Those of you regularly watching the Djuma Dam camera or watching our live drives in the evenings, that sound is this is a little guy or girl responsible for it. Now I know that there's a pair that live on quarantine, and this is probably one of them. You might even find that the other one is hiding somewhere in there. Steph, amazing that you found that. I don't know how you managed to. Oh, he was calling. Okay, that helps a bit. How's that for some of the best camouflage? There you go, Simon. I'm glad that you were looking forward to the Scops owl and that we got to see it. Hopefully, let's just stick around a little bit. Maybe the little guy will turn his head. They're not as truly nocturnal as the larger owl species. Scops and pearl-spotted owlets, even barred owlets, awesome, are what's known as crepuscular. So they are active in the morning and in the sort of late evening. I think he's having a bit of a preen. There you go, you can see a little bit more clearly. VM doing some amazing camera work there. Now it's very difficult for you to get a sense of perspective or scale. Oh, butterfly. It popped into that blurry motion, was a butterfly that flew into the view. Very difficult for you to get a sense of perspective of scale. I said it was one of our smallest owls. In fact, I'm fairly certain it is close to being the smallest. It is roughly the size of my hand. Tiny, tiny little bird. It's one of the reasons why it's evolved to be active at the times of day that it is active during. Come on, boy. You're going to look around and have a look at us. No, have a quick clean. I'm hoping as well that it might decide to call, having a good clean of its chest and around its neck area. There, oh, there's that glance, that disgruntled glance. I'm not sure if, in my opinion, and I don't think I'm wrong about that, the smallest owl species are the birds capable of giving you the dirtiest looks imaginable. No matter when you see them or the circumstances in which you see them, they always look extremely unimpressed to see you. It is a special gift that they have. in terms of their facial expressions. Absolutely adorable. Active at the times of day he's active in, so that he's not in competition with anything else. And how's the amount of vocalizations coming from all the other bird species? Right, to give you a picture so that you know what you are looking at. He is... This is our little gentleman. And maybe, just maybe, when we come to the end of our sunset safari, we might get a slightly better view if he or she decides to come out into the open as it's time to get active. Here we go, tiny little owl species. Even through the book, giving me a dirty look. Now ladies, I don't know how you feel about coming and giving us a wave through the final control door. Yes, no? I know you can hear me because I can hear myself. I know you can hear me, I can hear me. Through coming through the door. Here we go. Here's Jerry and Lou. They are directing our show. They have ducked back as fast as humanly possible.
Like vampires to a cave.
Wildebeest says, like vampires back into a cave. No, thank you, ladies, for coming out and saying hello to everyone. Jerry and Louise. Thank you, Steph. Steph, ever the gentleman. Where should we go? So we've spoken about birds and we've spoken about the foam nest frogs. Debbie was wondering, don't birds come and raid, excuse me, the foam nest frog nests? And Debbie, that's a very good point. Yes, probably they do. I'm just trying to think about which birds might do that. Tadpoles, of course, on pretty much everybody's menu, from the catfish right across to the different bird species. But before they've hatched, maybe that foam has quite an unsettling taste. I somehow imagine that it might, but maybe that's just how I picture it. Debbie, I'll do a little bit of research into that. I'm sure there are bird species, maybe something like a kingfisher might have a go at it, a roller, maybe some of the smaller raptors. It's an interesting thing. Of course, the reproductive strategies of those particular foam nests, because they don't always get it right. They might pick a place where their tadpoles are going to die because there's absolutely no space or no water left by the time it comes time for them to hatch. So as a result, the female foam nest frog can produce at least 20,000 eggs in one reproductive cycle. Hello, little one. I wonder if that's James's zebra foal. Could be, we're in the right place. Oh, it's a big call to make. Baby zebra to me are always slightly bigger than I think that they are. But it's got a nervous, fluffy new look. Hey, little one. Oh, we better make sure it's mom. Yep, definitely mom. If that were not mom, that zebra would already have had a bit of a nip or a kick. Female zebra not all that friendly to offspring that is not their own. But how's this for a stunning family scene in the green of quarantine? Quarantine that was starting to look a little bit like the Sahara. Beautiful. Having a bit of a sniff. That's another female. See how the foal stays away from the other zebra in the group. Slightly buffered. Now the stallion will be exceptionally protective of his foal, but the other mares are not related to it and thus don't have the same level of emotional investment that, say, females in a pride do. Well, that would be most likely another female. Generally, a herd of zebra is led by females in terms of choosing the way in which they go. This could also be the stallion putting himself between the threat and his family. What happens is the female will lead the herd and the stallion will walk at the back. because the female is capable of, because they'll walk into the wind, so the female will be able to smell out any kind of a threat. Let's see, who's this? Yeah, that's definitely the stallion to me. Oh, what was that? That was hilarious. He just did a sudden backward step. What's there, boy? What's given you such a fright? Was there a snake there, or did you just slip? Just did such a rapid backtrack. But he's not staring at anything on the ground. Maybe he just slipped. There is a bit of a slippery patch there. Or maybe just the wind swirling, making them a little bit unsettled. They want to go down and have a drink, I think, towards the dam. But as with all animals, that approach to water is done exceptionally cautiously. And he doesn't really want to risk his family, so it's done very slowly, plus the fact that it is as windy as it is makes them extra especially nervous. And if the sticks were wandering around here as well last night. Look at that little one. Spindly legs. Still slightly brown in colour. And that's a good question, since we've just had our background view into the final control. Pamela was wondering, have any animals ever come into the final control driveway? Pamela, that gate that we drove through had been specially opened for us. Now look at that zebra, that female, look how pregnant she is. My word. Positively bulging. Dare I say another live zebra birth? Maybe that's asking a bit much. I think one was an exception. 2 would be phenomenal. Pamela, sorry, that gate is usually kept closed, so animals don't go in. The fence is electrified, unlike the fence around Ingers, so that generally keeps or discourages the animals from coming through. We've had lions walk past, they've had leopard walk past. The hippo paid a regular visit very close to around the gate of the final control area. But while I've been here, none of the larger mammals have gone inside. That being said, they've had regular visits from the vervet monkeys of the area. And I remember one particularly vivid occasion where I think it was Nikki was directing me, and she was in the middle of a question, and the next thing there were squeals and shrieks of indignation from the girls in final control that had been invaded by vervet monkeys that were after Tara's raisins at the time. So yes, they do get visitors. Monkeys are one of them. I'm going to follow the zebra herd in a little bit, and then we will move off.
You can walk there now, but I don't know if this video is on.
There we go. I'll just shift my microphone up a little bit. Let's see if that helps with our sound issues. There was no snake or anything, by the way. That's interesting. Somebody went for a trip off-road. Just to show you why it is we are quite reluctant to off-road straight after rain like this. You can actually see the 2-track running all the way down there. Not sure who it was. Obviously it was necessary. It might even have been the guys coming to clear out the area, which they did do recently, so it could be them.
All the water switches down there.
The water switches, there we go, that's what it is. So the guys coming to sort out the water switches for the pumps. So that's why there's that 2-track going along there. But it is with these zebra. Very unsettled. It must be the wind. And absolutely, as we approach our zebra, to Willie Vanilli, who is watching and is a new viewer, is wondering, is this really live? Well, there you go. Your name's out there, so yes, absolutely, it is very much live. And the wonderful thing about that is that, much like sports games that are broadcast live, you just never know what is actually going to happen next. And we've had sightings that could even be labelled as not necessarily mundane, but fairly standard, that have changed in the matter of a blink of an eye. Whether it's been with a snake entering the scene, or lions coming through, or wild dogs. The wonderful thing about being out in the wild. And for example, that I mentioned the zebra birth, and that very pregnant zebra that's on the right of your screen. James, a couple of, maybe about 10 days ago, came around the corner of quarantine clearings, and Dave, the cameraman sitting on the back, spotted a zebra going into labor, and they watched the birth from start to finish. And that is a truly incredible experience. And I suspect, I mean, really, it's impossible for me to tell, to be honest. But it is entirely possible that this is little James's zebra. Or James's little zebra, not little James's zebra. Totally mixed up my adjectives there. Having a quick scratch. They do grow very quickly. And baby zebra are much larger than you expect them to be when they're born, in my experience. It's amazing how the proportion of the baby animals around here, the way in which they look different from the adults. And whilst this little zebra at first glance looks like a perfect miniature of mom, have a look at how much longer its legs are in proportion to its little body. The same goes for giraffe calves. It's an adaptation, because if you're born with short stumpy legs, you're not going to be able to keep up with the rest of the herd, and you're certainly not going to be running away or be able to escape potential predators. It's essential that they are born with that slightly out of proportion look. Wonderful piece of information from Renius, the wonderful gentleman who came to help us with tracking. It wasn't just the tracking that he gave us advice on, it was also animal behavior. Now we know that zebra are hindgut fermenters and that they produce plenty of gas, which is why they have those round bellies. You know how nervous they are, unsettled about something. And I think it's just because it is as windy as it is. But Renius's theory as to why they have evolved to be hindgut fermenters and therefore have the gassy build-up in their intestines, because that's where they do the bulk of their digesting, is that a predator goes for the weakest one in the group. So by looking fat and large, they make themselves look healthy. It's an interesting theory. I like it as a theory. It's certainly as valid as mine, which I think that being a hindgut fermenter, although you have to eat more than a ruminant, so something like a wildebeest or a buffalo, like the one we saw, they have to eat more, but they are capable of utilizing food that is of a lesser quality, which might serve them quite well during this drought period in terms of between the grazing animals. They're still going to suffer. There we go, foal having a bit of a drink. Oh, no. How's that bulge? Hey, Mommy? I bet you can't wait to get rid of that. Absolutely uncomfortable looking. Now, the zebra that you're looking at the moment are known as a plains, or their previous name was Burchell's zebra. So Paul, watching in Michigan, wanted to know, are these Grevy's zebra? And if not, what species are they? So, Paul, have a look at the bottoms of the zebras. You see between the thick black stripes, you see those, you see how nervous that foal is of other females, especially the pregnant one. You see how between the thick black stripes, they've almost got like a dirty stripe in between. It looks like somebody painting them ran out of paint and did those last few stripes with the sort of remainders. That is very typical. That is the identifying feature of a plain zebra. How's this in this afternoon light? Doesn't get more picturesque than a zebra herd. Paul, it's the only species of zebra that we have in this area. Their stripes extend all the way to the center of their bellies. Grevy zebra are not something that you would find here. You'd find them further north in the continent. The other zebra species that occurs naturally in Africa is known as the mountain zebra. And those are very much endangered, which has led to the establishment of the Mountain Zebra Park towards the Cape area, so the southwestern corner of our country. And that is where you're likely to find the Cape Mountain zebra. Their stripes don't extend all the way down to the middle of the stomachs as they do in our Burchell's or our plain zebra. The Burchell's is the old name for the species. Plain zebra is the new name. It's amazing how many different Burchell's there are. There's Burchell's starling. I was trying to remember. I did used to know the history behind that. I'll rack my brains and I'll remember. It'll come back to me. There's a reason. There was obviously somebody called Burchell's, and I think he was an explorer, but I'll have to just double check on that. Thank you, zebra. What a nice sighting we've had with you. Darlene, absolutely. Newborn foals do not imprint as quickly as we suspect it will do. So Darlene's heard that newborn foals will follow basically anything that moves, and therefore the mother has to be very careful in the first few weeks to keep them exceptionally safe and away from other zebras. Sorry guys, I'll go nice and slowly here. Don't panic. Don't panic. Here we go. Hello, gorgeous. Darlene, absolutely. Now, I've seen that borne out in practice. You would think that the scent and the call of the mother, as well as her stripe pattern, would imprint. Shame, you can see she's a little bit stressed. Let's go past them. Not dawdle too long and stress them out any further. Oh, Darlene, you would think that they would imprint almost immediately, and that would be a useful way or evolutionary tactic. But that's not what I've seen borne out in practice at all. Now, I spoke about this before. When we got back from Kruger, I spoke about a sighting that we'd had where a very large herd of zebra had come down to drink at a pan, along with a large herd of wildebeest and a big, probably about 200 odd impala. And in all of this chaos, a young foal had been separated from the rest of its herd. It was calling frantically to Mom. Mom was completely ignoring it, which I found quite peculiar. Obviously, she was very thirsty. And it was actually the other little foals in the group that were calling back to it. But at that point, the wildebeest herd finished drinking and started moving away past the foal. And this foal just took one look at the wildebeest and went, "Hello, Mom," and followed it off far away. It was probably about 100 meters away from the herd before it started to realize that maybe there were some stripes lacking in its new adopted herd that it decided to follow. And you could see the sudden realization set in. So that's definitely, Darlene, something that I've seen in practice, and good zebra mothers will go out of their way to keep their foals close. Another thing that we discussed was that heartbreaking sighting where the zebra stallions killed a foal a couple of months ago. We asked Renius's opinion on that because he has had the most phenomenal, he spent his entire life in the bush observing and watching, and we asked him if he thought there was a theory about that. And he said he felt like the stallions had done it because the foal had become separated from the mother and had started calling. And it's something that baby animals do, and it does put them at tremendous risk. So it was yip, 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 constantly, which, if there's anything in the area in terms of predators, from wild dog to leopard to lion to cheetah, would attract attention and draw attention to the rest of the herd as a result. So his opinion was that that attack was whoa. A huge herd of impala. Sorry about that. I was going to say here's a good example of a foam nest frog that's put her eggs in the wrong place, but unfortunately we didn't have signal in that dip. So she's chosen a place where it is going to dry. That pan, the water underneath her is going to be dry in the next 2 days. How many impala would we guess are here? What would you guys say? I think that there's at least 50, if not more. I'm starting to see all of the impala crowding together. Whether or not that is due to the fact that we're coming to the rutting time or whether it's a product of the drought remains to be seen. Yeah, but we are definitely seeing the spike in hormones that comes as a prelude to impala breeding season. Stunning. Now, one of the things that is mentioned a lot about impala, and female impala in particular, is their ability to retain or stop the birth of the youngsters if the rains are particularly late. Now, that's a question that Leopard is wondering and would like an answer to. Is it possible that any of the females will have drop their youngsters now after the rain, or would they be able or capable to delay that birth? And the answer is no. A female comes to the end of her full term, she cannot support that baby any longer with her body. Obviously, we get to that size restrictions. Now, mammals have evolved to keep their youngsters in utero for as long as possible, to the latest possible developmental stage, to the point that they will be able to fit through the pelvis. They cannot get much larger than that without risking damaging the female. And where I think the rumor stemmed from in terms of the impalas is the fact that their first mating is not always successful in every female. So what will happen is 85% of the females will fall pregnant during the first rut, which is going to happen around, looks like it's going to happen around April, May actually this year, I would say. We'll see when they actually start mating. Already there's two boys sparring over there with the hormones coming through them, practicing. Oh, serious fight. Crashing their horns together. So now impala are interesting in that they all breed they have a very set breeding season. It's quite unusual for most of the animals out here. There's always a peak in the rainy season, but not a set time. The reason I think that the rumor stemmed about impala is because after that time period, boys lost interest in each other. They're now going to go and torment the little lambs and the females. 85% of them will fall pregnant. The other 15%, the mating that either they don't mate or the mating does not immediately result in fertilization, at which point they need to come into estrus again. So there's about a 1.5 month gap between the first estrus cycles of the impala and the second of those that don't fall pregnant, which means there's a very delayed birth for about I'm making up the number 15%. I'm roughly guessing at what the number is. So we have seen a few very new looking lambs in the last few weeks or so that have been born as part of the late birth, known as late lammetjies. That being said, Leopard, the buffalo have only just started dropping their calves. They tend to have quite a late breeding season. And something like the zebra, for example, they don't have a set exact month at which they all give birth. So they tend to sort of drop throughout the rainy season.
Can you go to...
But I personally do not think it's possible for a female mammal to delay birth. Oh, look at this. Here they all come. Awesome. Panic. Now, something has scared them. Let's just listen. Are they rutting or is there something in there? It's a difficult time of year. There are alarm calls coming from closer in towards the drainage line. There was a leopard around here before, but the rest of the impala that are close to the drainage line not looking tense enough. Let's just sit and wait and watch for a moment. Oh, I think I see what scared them. Hello? Hello, little warthog. Did you give the impalas a fright? I think you gave those impala a fright. Still alarm calls though. No, I think they're on edge because it's windy. The males are pressing them. The warthog probably just scurried into their sighting. Jeepers, so many impala. Look at them all. Now, Mike has sent through a question to continue our conversation about the impala breeding season. Mike, please don't worry if you think that it's a question that's been asked on Drive before. It's really not a problem because we get new viewers tuning in every day and even halfway through drives on a very regular basis. So asking a question that's been asked before is definitely not a problem. Mike was wondering, when do the impala's rutting season start? Interestingly enough, it is around the same time throughout South Africa, but it comes sort of in weeks or 2 weeks distance, depending on the climate and the area and the habitat that we're in. Sorry, Mike, I'll be with you now. There's pearl-spotted owls calling, which would be nice to compare. Sometimes get them to come to you by calling them. Might be a little bit stressful with it being as windy as it is. Right, sorry, so Mike, breeding time and rutting time differs from place to place, but it's around roughly May. The month of May is generally the time that they start to rut, with a sort of a 2-week leeway on either side. The males already now in mid-March starting to get that build-up of hormones. That's why the impala are as vocal as they are at the moment. There's lots of snorting, lots of the grunting sounds that the males produce, and they started to harass the females. Lots of horn thrashing, because nothing makes a male impala look scarier than walking up to the nearest bush and thrashing his horns about in it until the leaves are all stripped. It's one of those things that antelope just do. Clearly very intimidating. I'm sure we all feel that. What a wonderful amount. At least 50 impala. Reposition ever so slightly without scaring anybody. Because they're all going to go and have a drink. They've all relaxed a lot, which makes me think that it was just a bit of a shock to the system. Maybe the warthog scared them, maybe another impala panicked in these windy days. And as soon as you've got multiple members of a herd, they immediately become slightly more nervous. As soon as one impala runs, it makes sense to go and run. Now just have a look at this little one. Oh, male's fighting at the back. Little one having a drink. Horns already coming through and already close to the size of the adults. How amazing is that these guys born the beginning of December are already close to the size, not quite, but almost the size of an adult female. And it's something you notice, the speed of their growth is quite simply astronomical. It is phenomenal to watch. Let's just have a look at those boys fighting at the back again. But Karen, who is watching or is used to live in Zimbabwe, has said she's always found zebra very difficult to age, zebra foals. Whew, serious arguments going on here, because their legs look so long compared to those of the adults. And Karen, that's exactly what I mean. It's the same with the impala, with the giraffe calves, with the impala lambs, and with the zebra foals. They're disproportionate. Now, your theory about does it make it harder for the predators to single them out? To an extent, but I think what it does do is allows them to keep up with the herd. When the herd is being chased by a predator, that they don't become separated from. All the gentlemen misbehaving in this herd, pushing females, stressing them out a little bit. It's just that time of year. Lovely to see a herd like this out in the open. So Karen, I think it's just a product of being able to grow as quickly as possible and to keep up with them. Giraffe calves have a slightly different technique in that although their legs are very long, their necks look ridiculously short compared to their bodies. And that's because although they've got the long legs, they need to be able to suckle from mom at the same time. So it becomes a little bit of a different disproportionate look that giraffe take on. See what I mean? We've got half the impala population of the Kruger National Park here. I am, of course, exaggerating, and that as the most numerous antelope in the Kruger Park, there are definitely far more than the 50 or so that we've got here. But I think those alarm calls, I wanted to just sit and make sure that those alarm calls were false alarms, and I'm pretty sure that they were. Everybody's now looking fairly relaxed. And generally, impala are quite reliable. They don't really alarm call for much else other than leopards, lions, and cheetah as well. They'll also alarm call for. If there's wild dogs, they are gone. Absolutely frantic. Now, I'm sure that Renius, apart from being able to identify the different alarm calls of squirrels, I'm pretty sure that he would also be able to read the different alarm calls or listen to the different alarm calls of impala as well. Look here. You don't mess with an impala's eyesight. I can almost guarantee that there is something off to the right of us. Just look at the way the females are looking across there. Now, chances are it is another antelope, it could be another impala, it could even be those zebra that we were watching earlier. An impala will stand and stare. There's a squirrel calling. Let's just listen for a second. Maybe it's not just another antelope that they've seen. They might even be listening to the squirrel's alarm call. Well, that's the road I was going down anyway. Let's see if we can work out what these impala have spotted. They're not alarm calling yet, so they haven't necessarily seen it. So there's two options. One, they've seen movement and they're trying to identify what it is. That generally happens with the other antelope species. Or two, they're listening to the alarm call of the squirrel. I have seen them respond to alarm calls of squirrels before. Whatever it is, they've decided that it's not too much of a threat to them. Nevertheless, let's go and investigate. That was my route plan. Let's go and see if we can work out what those impala were looking at. The female's still not 100% convinced. As I said, you don't mess with an impala's eyesight. Just generally chatting about the various animals that you could see on our live safari. James Richards was just asking, has there been any sign of that baboon troop that Brent saw around Drakensberg? James, not that we've seen. They haven't come through past the camps or past the pan or anything like that. That being said, we lost the whole morning due to the rain, so they might have come through. I don't think so though. And the baboon sightings this year have been exceptionally scarce. I personally haven't managed to put any of them on live safaris, and in fact, I've only seen one baboon troop in my entire time here that came across for a drink at our swimming pool before moving on. And they've moved down probably towards the more river-based areas, so where there are flowing rivers, protective trees. Sorry. I think that squirrel's shouting at the pearl-spotted owl. Still going. There's also other birds calling as well. It would be nice if we could spot that pearl-spotted owlet. Maybe a bit tricky. It's smaller than the Scops owl that we showed you earlier and equally well camouflaged. I have seen one or two on this road. There's a pair that lives just along this corner, and I'm sure that's them that we're calling earlier. I wonder what this impala spotted. I haven't seen anything so far. No sign. I'm sure she did see something though. She was doing that very hard stare into the bushes. It's my I don't think. I'm just having a look at the European road above my head.
Chance to redeem yourself, Jeremy.
BM says, here's my chance to redeem myself in terms of the terribly embarrassing moment in which I tried to remove a large tree from the road, and I grabbed the stupidest, smallest branch imaginable and gave it a very solid tug with all of my weight behind it, at which point the branch broke and I, of course, went sprawling into the dirt on my bottom. Now, VM, as the cameraman that particular afternoon, first of all, I think had a wonderful time, and he's certainly having a bit of a grin about it now, but he also, being professional, immediately punch-zoomed in to watch my moment of glory. Now, buffalo thorn, do I really feel like tackling this? Not particularly with my hands, no.
It's advanced level.
This is advanced level tree moving. I failed at the base level. Now, the elephant's doing some landscaping, and as you can see, our passage around blocked at every turn. We go push it out of the way. Let's see if we can. Let's see how well attached it is. The rest of the Birminghams, as far as I know, is still around Buffelshoek, which is interesting. I don't know how often they've actually ventured into those areas. I wonder if this is a fair question. I wonder if this is a fair quiz. I could accept two answers for it. I'm looking at this hole. What animal might be responsible for it? There you go, freshly dug at some point last night, because as you can see, if you look where the dirt has been spread up away from it, it's been compacted down by the rain this morning, so sometime last night. Question for you guys, and I'll accept two possible answers, although I'm fairly certain only one of them is correct. I'm trying to see if there's any tracks that would give it away. Unfortunately, I think the rain has done away with our secondary group of evidence, but let's see if you can work out, or if you can think about what have you got? I've got some warthogs. What animal might have dug that hole? Hello, warthog. Well spotted, VM. And there's actually one of her babies I can see on the termite mound. Let's shuffle forward and have a look. Oh, just to weigh together what we know, that hole was freshly dug. It's quite a large hole. And there's two animals that I will take as correct answers for who might be responsible. You can send those answers through to #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@WildEarth.tv. And to give you a bit of a scale, it's about that long and probably about that deep. Hello. Luckily, this family of warthogs are quite relaxed. We should be able to get a nice clear view of them. Hello, little ones. Oh, you've done so well. Stop here. You can see what I mean. Most of you know by now that Warthogs have been fairly skittish in the past, but this lot moving fairly calmly and in the nice and open. Look at the scratches on that little guy's side. He just went out of turn as I said that. I'm not sure whether any of you managed to spot that. This mommy also looking a bit thin. The drought's starting to take its toll on warthogs, I think. Her hip bones sticking out ever so slightly. Not nearly as unhealthy as that warthog that was on Twin Dams that we strongly suspect has now died and been eaten by the Birmingham boys. But nevertheless, still not in peak condition. And she's been thin actually since we first started seeing this little group on Philemon's cut line. No easy job raising piglets plus trying to feed yourself in a drought. So this burst of rainfall, definitely a positive for the mother herbivores of the bush. These little piglets growing up so fast. This was originally a group of 6. I know for certain that Tingana took 1 piglet, and probably a leopard was responsible for the death of the other. But that could be any of the predators that might have got hold of it. There are only 4 little piglets remaining. Originally, from what I could see, 2 of them belong to one mother and 4 to the other. It's quite tricky to actually tell which piglets belong to which mother and if they're all related or if they are part of different litters. They don't necessarily move around close to their mothers. There you can see the mom that's just walked into view now, the female that just walked into view. She doesn't look nearly as bony. Her hip bones are not as prominent, her spine not nearly as prominent. And there's one little straggling piglet at the back. No idea. Hello, little ones. There's the scratches I was talking about. That's not scratches from any predator. To me, that looks like it just ran through some sticks that scraped along the skin and left a mark. Now, with this flush of green, will definitely benefit them, but I'm not sure whether that's the thin frame of that one female is due to the drought or if it is due to other factors such as disease. I have no idea whether the green flush that we're experiencing now might help her out in terms of her condition. I think the fact that she is not as thin, or that the one is not nearly as thin as the other, might suggest that it is caused by a disease, or it might just be that the thin mom has more piglets to feed. She might have had a bigger litter. I'll go forward a little bit. Interesting, warthogs do suffer in the drought since their diet is based largely on the better parts of the plants, so the roots and the shoots, often bulbs that they've managed to dig up, which is why they forage with their heads and their mouths so close to the ground and very often on their ankles themselves. I just wanted to see if I could see any of their tracks here in the dirt, since the mud is nice and soft, but it doesn't look like it. A warthog also exceptionally sensitive to temperature changes, especially the youngsters of this age and younger, although these guys are getting to the point where they're a bit more resilient. But sudden cold snaps, if a female has piglets close towards spring and there's a sudden cold snap that takes it back to winter temperatures, very often is responsible for the early deaths of a lot of little piglets. All in all, warthogs quite easily affected by changes in season. The nice thing is, though, we're slowly getting more and more in terms of the generational effect of how relaxed they're getting. Just listen for a moment. Yeah. Weavers calling, which is interesting. We don't get that many of them in this area. Or we haven't this year, at least. Did you hear a squirrel or anything, Vian? No, just listening to bird calls. Always hopeful. I And let us head on, since our warthog family is slowly disappearing off into the drainage line system. Boaty and Pamela, in answer to our quiz about the little hole dug into the ground, their suggestion was actually that it was the gremlins. It was the gremlins. It was an attack of the gremlins, and they dug that hole. I like that. It's a nice answer. Let's have a look here. Somebody has been having an absolute field day in this patch of earth, and I'm looking specifically at what the elephants here have managed to unearth. I would ask you this as a quiz, but it's a little bit easy, I think, in terms of what happened here. The elephants digging out and around the base of this raisin bush. They've done a very good job of essentially destroying it, and at the same time unearthing a bulb. And obviously whoever did this I didn't find particularly appetizing. Looking at the tracks, it's probably a bull, although the track size tends to expand a little bit when there is rain and when the sand is soft. And also, again, that mud compacted after the rain. So this happened not all that recently. Interesting. I don't know what that bulb is. I cannot tell you what that bulb happens to be. It doesn't look like a bushman's poison bulb, which they dig out on a fairly regular basis. If any of you happen to know what that is, you're welcome to let me know. But there's a whole range of underground tubers and bulbs like that belong to different species. But if you do happen to know, if you happen to find yourself a horticultural expert, feel free to let me know. Oh, sorry, pigs. You're coming this way now. That was a change in direction. There we go. Leopard and Elaine have answered the question as honey badger. Gada has guessed slender mongoose. And there's one other answer that's come through as a dwarf mongoose from Charlotte. Now, I'm going to explain first of all why the first answer, so the honey badger answer from Leopard and Elaine, is not the correct one, although it was a very good guess. The hole is a little bit too small, but that's not the dead giveaway, because that's a difficult question for you to answer if you don't have a specific example of scale. Now, honey badgers, when they dig, they don't throw back the dirt in one direction. They spray it all around the hole. That's usually quite a dead giveaway for a honey badger digging. They scuff between their back legs in one place, and then they rotate and they go to the other side of the hole and they scuff behind there. Now, the hole we were looking at only had dirt thrown out in one direction. Now, Charlotte, not a bad guess in terms of dwarf mongoose. The reason I'm going to say no to that is, first of all, it's very, very large. It's a bit too large for a dwarf mongoose to make. It's about the size of a dwarf mongoose itself, or close to. And also the fact that it was all on its own. Now, generally with dwarf mongoose, there have been there's frantic activity in separate ways. Gada, slender mongoose, again, a little bit too big for a slender mongoose. As I said, I will accept two answers, although I strongly suspect there is only one, but I'll go for two, just because it was a tricky one in terms of looking at scale and being able to see what it might have been. We've got other guesses coming through. Linda and Gada have suggested the possibility of a baboon spider. That's an interesting one. The answer is no. Generally, the baboon spiders don't excavate a hole in one go. They're my little piglets, all dashing across. Cute, man. Tails in the air. I'm just giving them plenty of leeway to cross, since we're not in any kind of rush. A baboon spider hole is kept throughout their lives and is slowly excavated as they grow larger. So you don't get that amount of dirt out in one go. You never find piles of dirt around a baboon spider hole. That being said, in terms of size, that hole was I said it was about roughly that large. That would be a scarily large baboon spider, although not that far outside of the realms of what they actually look like. So probably the biggest baboon spider I've ever seen was roughly just larger than the diameter of a golf ball, is maybe a good example, but larger than that. So it could be the right size, but the neat edges of a baboon spider is what gives it away. And usually if it's an active baboon spider nest, nice webbing around the front as well. She'll close, when she goes down for the night, she'll close herself in. And so when you find the holes during the day, that's what you're left with. Let's go with the final guesses. Debbie has guessed a scorpion. Again, I've seen scorpion holes with that radius, but a very different shape. James Richards has got my second answer that I will accept. It's not the animal I think that's responsible for it, but I have accepted that one, and that is porcupine. James Richards has suggested porcupine. Lynn has gone with scrub hare. Lynn, generally scrub hare don't dig. They, unlike rabbits, they are purely sort of grazers and maybe sometimes browsers around the area, but they don't dig holes. Could it? And Simon has guessed an aardwolf. Simon, aardwolf is not a bad guess, although you'd be more than likely to find digging around a termite mound. But to be completely honest, Simon, there's still a lot of debate as to whether or not there are that many aardwolf in this area as it is. We haven't seen any. Brent swears he's seen one in Manuletti. VM, was it Brian? Yeah, you and Brian. So VM's seen one in Manuletti as well, which is a property up to the north of where we are here. We've never seen one on Djuma. I've never seen one on Djuma. But they are insectivores and they do dig down into termite mounds and holes. I think we might, maybe, just maybe, have caught you out, although it was it was a tricky question, but a nice way to sort of go about thinking. James Richards, who answered porcupine, that is very similar or close to a porcupine digging, although I personally suspect it's a little bit small, but I can't completely rule it out, so that's why I said I would accept that answer. But in a way, actually, Gerda came the closest to what I think it might be, and that is a white-tailed mongoose. It could have been a porcupine. Both porcupine and white-tailed mongoose are active at night, but white-tailed mongoose have this very distinctive digging sides around the side. Julia, you just guessed that. Very well done. Okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Well done. Julia did get it right. It was a white-tailed. I suspect it's a white-tailed mongoose. It's either white-tailed mongoose or porcupine. I don't think porcupine, but I'll accept that answer as well. So very well done. Now, porcupine have a very distinctive digging style where they make an almost iron-like shape. And I mean the iron is in a clothes iron, that sort of curve around the top. And when I find a nice, unfortunately the light's not very nice for drawing. Otherwise maybe I could explain better what I mean. I don't particularly feel like digging in the road, but maybe that's the best way of demonstrating. Yes, that's what I'll do. I'll find a nice flat spot and I'll demonstrate exactly what I mean. Mongoose, white-tailed mongoose holes go surprisingly deep down and they stay fairly uniform in the way in which they're shaped, whereas porcupine tend to scrape along the edges and to get to roots. Now, if you looked at the plant or what was around that, although there were grass roots, typically porcupine will dig around the base of larger plants rather than grass itself. They'll dig around like at the base of this combretum, for example, and they'll be looking to get access to the root systems of those trees, and then they go and they nibble on the roots. Whereas white-tailed mongoose, of course, as little hunters, little carnivores, they are far more interested in bugs and scorpions and all manner of things that might be available there. I'm going to go to a nice open area and then I'll explain that more fully by drawing a little bit as an example. It was a tricky one though, so well done to all of you. All of your guesses were very well thought out. There was nothing extreme or bizarre about them. I'm slowly, just in case you're wondering about the route, since Brent hasn't picked up on any leopard tracks for us to follow up on, and neither have I'm slowly making my way towards the hyena den before it gets a little bit too dark for us to watch them. And it is going to get dark fairly quickly this evening with the clouds about. Now, Deborah, watching in Ohio, to go back to Simon's guess of aardwolf, she says the first time she ever heard the word aardwolf was in a game of Scrabble, which I must admit sounds hilarious. Can you just imagine Donna going, "Are you sure that's a word? Are you sure you didn't make up that word?" Because that, to me, I mean, I'm not the most avid of Scrabble players. My mind works better with number games rather than with word games. That being said, I think that aardwolf would probably get you quite a high score depending on where you manage to put it. Now, so Donna, you were wondering a bit about the origin, where it comes from. Oh, it was Deborah. Art is earth, wolf is wolf. It's an earth wolf. And they do look like earth wolves. I'll find a picture for you now when I stop on the clearings. Have a look at the greenery in the view. And then we can start to draw and chat a little bit about the various guesses that were suggested to us. And maybe even do a bit of digging. If you give me one moment while we have a look at, see if you can spot any animals while I search for a picture of an aardwolf. So the same origin of the name aardwolf is where aardvark comes from, except instead of being an earth wolf, it is an earth pig. An aardvark. So Afrikaans. Or in fact, probably you'll find when they were named, it would have been at the point at which Afrikaans was still evolving from Dutch. Now there's lots and lots of argument, just to continue a conversation about the aardwolf, and that is whether or not it is part of the hyena family or not. And there's a lot of conversation amongst evolutionary scientists as to where they would put it. It falls within the family Hyaenidae, but does not have the same powerful jaws. I'm talking about aardwolves.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, I haven't seen any while we've been tracking.
You haven't seen any aardwolf?
No.
Not trying hard enough.
I know.
Hello, Dave.
Hello, Jamie.
There's our wonderful tracking team. Dave and I spent the morning completely drenched after the rain.
Liam's having a good time. He's telling us to smile.
How's the tracking going?
Not very successful. We haven't found a track.
Yes.
Which is generally a good thing when you're tracking.
I've just asked them a white-tailed mongoose hole as a quiz.
Ah, well done. Nice.
Yeah, using Renius's tracking lessons as an example.
Nice. Have you checked around Sydney's in that area?
No. I've come up from the Scotland.
Well, if you told them, I think I've seen the aardwolf very close to here.
Very close to camp. I thought it was in Manuleti.
No, to here. Very close to the gate.
Oh no, I haven't actually. There you go.
And then I think I found tracks around Sydney's dam as well. That was a while ago.
You never know.
And then from Lex, who's been in and out of the Sounds for 35 years, only one recorded sighting of an aardwolf in the Sabi Sands on Mandalose in like 1973.
1973. Okay, so we've got good odds then.
Yes. Yeah.
Good odds for our live sighting of an aardwolf.
Good luck.
Bye.
Good luck.
Have fun. Let me know how Sydney's goes.
Yeah, I will do.
I'm going to go Miskaya now.
No elephant tracks anymore either. Everything decided to go on holiday.
Yes, taking a break. There you go, a little update from our tracking team. Of course, nice for our cameraman to go out on a drive without having to focus on or listen to us nattering away, at least in a presenting sense, although I'm sure that Dave is still having to listen to some nattering away. Tiny little aardwolf, as I said, much debate. It's got the sloping back of the aardwolf, but not the same powerful jaws that the hyenas and the spotted hyenas have, and the striped hyena. Pure insectivores, go looking for harvester termites. Definitely not something we're going to see.
Jamie, have we noticed what's happening behind us?
No, I have not noticed what's happening behind us.
On the horizon.
Oh my word. Well, that was well spotted. Building up. That's interesting. To the east of us, northeast of us. A massive cloud bank of cumulonimbus clouds. I must say, I do feel a bit of a dip in the wind temperature. And there we go, the big storm clouds. Now, typically, if we'd been experiencing a normal season, we would have had those billowing through pretty much at the end of every single day, bringing with them a big, very noisy, quite scary thunder and lights show before dumping a deluge of rain upon us and disappearing in time for the next morning. Just nice enough to drop the temperatures down. Something, of course, that we haven't really experienced to the true extent this year. Right, quickly, since we're here, once I've untangled myself from my current position, I wanted to just do some drawing of the various hole shapes that you would find for the various guesses. Hold on, sorry, I'm still tangled in my spotlight. Okay, I think I've managed. Right, now, the last time I got out of this car, which was just after the rain, as I got out, there's this door handle here. And for some reason, I don't quite know how I managed it, but it's exactly the same height as my belt loop. And I somehow hooked myself, but I was propelling myself out of the car at high speed. And you do that. And nobody witnessed it, and I was so glad that I was alone when that happened. Okay, so just quickly, in terms of what I meant when I said that a porcupine hole is iron-shaped, is this okay, wildebeest? Perfect, thank you. So when they dig down, it forms a shape almost like this, but horizontally in the sand, if you sort of imagine. So they have a focused digging point at the tip that then spreads outward, and this is where they are focusing their attention, is on the inside here. Now, I'm not going to dig as deep as a porcupine might. Now, with the white-tailed mongoose, also, you see what I mean about same direction, being flicked in the same direction? With white-tailed mongoose, it's more circular. So they dig down almost straight down, rather than having that point that I was talking about. So straight down, but again, that way. Honey badgers, what I was talking about with honey badgers, they do that, then they come over here and they do that, then they do that, then they do that. So there's dirt all around the edge. That was my best honey badger digging example. I'm going to have dirt under my fingernails for days. And then the last few, baboon spiders, nice and perfectly round, but as I said, usually with a web. And scorpions is a shape, it takes on a shape rather than a round hole. It is just like a scorpion, like this, in the ground. So laterally flattened, just like a scorpion's body shape. You can imagine they're quite wide, but they're quite squat in terms of size. So that's how they go into their holes. And that concludes that. A slender mongoose was not a bad guess, but would probably have been much smaller. A white-tailed mongoose is almost about 50% larger than a slender mongoose in terms of bulk. Right, here we go. I hope you all enjoyed that digging explanation. I shall leave trackers guessing as to what happened there and who was digging and why they covered their tracks back up. I don't think it will leave people guessing. I think they will figure that out fairly quickly.